So hello, as I say, I'm from Contrepois, and this one I'm going to talk about the chain of intent. So if you follow, I have a website which is also called fromcontrepois.com, very egocentric, and I talk about top-down FinOps, and this is some sort of going to be a high-level condensed version. And we're going to start, if I manage, with a fun fact in here is that if you look at how Steve Jobs is dressed, he's like a uniform, and Mark Zuckerberg used to do the same. So, but why are they doing that? They're dressing themselves in exactly the same way every day because that removes one decision. And there is a say that there is decision fatigue and that your brain can only manage a certain number of decisions per day. So removing any trivial decision will leave more energy for the important ones. And so that's the reason. But also what I want to add to that is that every time you make a decision, every time you have to make a decision, there is also a chance of mistakes. Okay? So having this approach of removing trivial decisions is going to help you be calmer, is going to help you definitely make better decisions, important ones, but it's also going to reduce the amount of mistakes. So what you really want to do is to apply this to most things that you do. And so what I was looking, how can you solve this? How does that apply, not just in dressing, but in other things? And I found that it's about policies. So what is a policy? A policy, I'm going to read, refers to a set of rules made for rational automated decision-making. So roughly it tells the same thing, is that if you have a policy in place, there is a default. There is something that's already done or selected. You do not have to make that decision. So my first recommendation is every time you see someone having to make a decision or you having to make a decision, stop a second, think through it. Is this an important decision, or is this a decision that's repeated over and over again? Can I have a policy eliminate that decision? Okay. And roughly that would be it. My presentation would be over. That's the one, the one message they tell you need to put into presentation. That's the thing. You need policies and start thinking in policies. So the rest of the slides, I am going to go on to how to apply this approach in maybe not your day-to-day practice, but in your practice. And so first of all, Victor already done everything I needed to do with this. Is why do we have this AI challenge? The velocity of AI costs can go extremely fast. They can spiral very easily. You can go into loops. So you really need a proactive governance. You cannot do, oh, I've got my billing data 8 hours later. Happy days. In this case, you might end up being broke. The other thing is that we are trying, lots of companies are still trying things. And so we don't know exactly how much something is going to cost. We don't know how much our use of AI is going to cost and how much our users are going to do it. And I can tell you, every time I try, especially recently, or when I try a new AI project, I'm scared. I say, oh, did I configure everything right? So there is an uncertainty factor there. But the last one, which is probably the most important one, is you want your AI engineers, it tends to be extremely costly too, you want them to do deep engineering. You do not want them to use that decision energy to do things which are not helping with their jobs. You want them to really do deep engineering. So those are all the challenges. And one interesting thing that we've done with the workshop, for example, is that was, thank you, Umer, for making it looking really cool. AI is a complicated bit. There are lots of things to think about, and some of them are more important than others. And so in this table, we've tried to summarize an order of action. If you are going to take control of your AI usage, look in this order. Because as you can see, there are 3 very high rows and 2 high. That's a lot. So start with your GPU and accelerator. Is everything under control? Are you potentially delegating all of that to a cloud vendor? What are the foundation model, etc., etc. This is what I call a map for your prioritization. So next, we've done the AI challenge to the left. We're going to do step one. We're going to go to the executive intent. And executive intent is something that I was trying to push and explain, which is that you need to follow and be part of the execution of the strategy of your company. You, FinOps, cannot just act as I'm doing what the tool tells me to do. You need to make sure that whatever you're doing is aligned with what the company and the strategy of the company is. And so I was extremely pleased. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now when JR presented the updated FinOps framework for 2026. And there were 2 things which are very important. One was risk, which is highlighted there. Risk is something that is normal in decision making. You do risk-reward decision. That's absolutely normal. It's not a bad word. And you see there is a new element, a new capabilities, which is the executive strategy alignment. And it's exactly what I'm going to talk about now. It is about us making sure that we follow and help the executive strategy with our FinOps activities. So, good. Now, that's really cool. We've got our executive intent. It's very high level. I would say you can't really implement much of it. So it needs a first clear up. It needs a first level of translation. And that translation, which I call strategic policies, is something you need and will have to negotiate with the leadership. It is something you don't negotiate with tech yet. It's not really implementable as is, but you can definitely negotiate to the leadership to make sure that what you understand is the strategy will correctly, you're going to implement it in the right way. And that works. I've made it simple. I think the best way is to use an ad lib, which really is a sentence with blanks. But if you write things this way, you're going to create a structured way to talk, to create strategic policy that makes sense, and you're not going to forget anything, or at least my opinion. So it worked like this: to increase something positive or reduce something negative, we will ensure that AI usage does something or does not do something, and we will not allow the non-negotiable, the red line. And so that looks like this. For example, to increase the value delivered by AI and reduce consumption waste, we will ensure that cloud and AI usage is actively used, right-sized, and reviewed. And we will not allow idle, over-provisioned, or abundant services consuming capacity. Okay, we're going to go back to this one, but that's an example. That's a high-level strategy, and you can discuss it. It might be slightly technical, but if you're talking with your potentially CTO or whoever VP of engineering, they will understand what this means, and they will be able to tell you yes or no, or change it. So now we're going to go to the tactical policy. So you've done that. You've got those strategic policies, and you might have many. You've got those strategic policies. They have been confirmed. By being confirmed, they become a mandate for you. Hopefully, you're getting also some political power, though you can add points to the sprints for you and your policies. But now we need to start negotiating with the technical team. We need to start negotiating with the engineers. And so we're going to transform these strategic policies. We're going to expand them into tactical policies. Just saying, what does a tactical policy look like? This is a screenshot from a book that Umer wrote with lots of people participating and helping. But I think that summarizes it well. It's a workflow, and it starts with there is something that is not right. And then you're going to notify people. You're going to manage what happens when the notified person do not do anything. You're going to see when they do the check, which is the review, and they ask for an exception possible, or when they, on the other side, they just repair it and we're done. And that's the first level policy. And when you do all the steps, at the end, you might have a policy that is so robust that you just have, if there is a violation of the policy, you remediate. Done. But that's something that needs to evolve. So as an example, going back to our strategic policy at the top, in this case, for example, we have, and this is fiction, but it works, we have 3 tactical policies, because the tactical policies, the difference is they are implementable. So we have GPU right sizing. We need to highlight resources. We need to say a condition that is measurable. That's the difference. And we need to have an action that we can. So we are transforming this strategic policy into 3 tactical policies and possibly more. This is something that I can, again, negotiate with my tech team. They might tell me, no, we need bigger than 100, or we have something when our utilization goes down, or whatever the reasons you might want to have, you can negotiate and agree with your tech team. And so the last bit, because this is a short presentation, normally we go in details into all of that. We do exercise for each level. The last thing is the implementation. And if you've done the thinking, because step 1, 2, and 3 are the thinking, now the doing, when using right tools, becomes almost trivial. And so this is what it looks like when you use Stacklet. You create a policy, it's in YAML. If you can read YAML, which is supposedly human readable, and it is truly human readable, if you are used to read these kind of policies, it's simple. If you're not used to it, you take this, you put it into an LLM, it's going to tell you everything about it. But the aim is to say that from all the tactical policies you've built, you can create a policy like this. And at that point, you'll be able to connect this policy directly to what is the strategy element that it is improving or working with. Last thing is when you're implementing all these policies, this is what I call the map for technical. You need to create your policies in a hierarchical level. You might have very high level, very generic policies at the top, like we're not going to waste resources, but then that might be interpreted differently for different business units. And so you have other policies which are complementary, specialized, and then you might have that again when you go deep inside. Test and dev obviously are different than integration, than pre-prod, than prod, and all these kind of things. So you create your policy in a structured way, in a hierarchical way. That's going to help you have clear, actionable, remediable, and also traceable implementation. And thank you very much.